So one of the worst financial mistakes that I've ever made was buying my first house. All right, I was young, I was like, yo, I got a job, even though I was making literally like $24,000 a year. I had my fitness center, and I decided, you know what? I think it's time. I don't want to rent, I don't want to waste money. I'm gonna buy a house, right? I was super pumped, I was excited, I found this house. It was actually more than I technically could afford, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get roommates. I'm gonna get roommates, and then I'm gonna live, and everything's gonna be awesome. Well, I bought this house. Now, at the time, I didn't have to put any money down. I financed everything. The interest rate was really not that great, but I ended up doing it, right? My monthly rent or mortgage, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I did the math. I'm like, yo, I can handle it, because this is what the mortgage is going to be, and this is what I make, right? And then I'm going to get rent, and then it's going to be awesome. Well, the other thing that I didn't realize at the time is that, oh shit, there are a lot of other expenses that come with owning a house. Well, guess what? I couldn't afford it. I had 2 roommates. It was kind of a disaster. They paid me enough to basically scrape by, but I literally didn't have any extra money. Everything that I had was going to repairs and overhead, trash, electric, all the bills. And I was making $24,000 a year. And I ended up selling it. I ended up selling it and literally losing about $10,000, which I didn't have. The whole thing was just a disaster. I should have just rented. I should have rented an affordable place, and then I would have saved my money, and eventually when I was really ready, I could have bought a house then. Which brings me to the first money mistake that a lot of young dudes make in their 30s, and that is thinking they need to buy when the reality is they should rent. But before you really make that decision, you gotta do a few other things that a lot of dudes in their 30s just don't do because it's uncomfortable, and that is have a budget. Know what's coming in, know what's going out. Until you do that, you have no idea what's actually happening financially with you. All right? And so, what I'd recommend each and every one of you do, it doesn't matter if you're 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, you've got to figure out where you are, because until you figure out where you are financially, it's impossible to make any financial change or gain. You got to know what your baseline is. For the next month, write it down. How much is coming in? How much is going out? Typically, how much is coming in is pretty easy. Whether or not you have a job, you've got a job and a side hustle, or you've got unemployment, whatever it is, you know how much money is typically coming in. And then start tracking all of your expenses. All right? By the end of the month, you're going to see. It's going to be like a balance sheet. And then at the end of the month, you're going to have some idea of what's going on with you financially. And then it's about cutting. Living below your means. That is the single best piece of advice I can give each and every one of you that eventually wants to have financial freedom or FU money. You've got to live below your means. You've also got to be able to identify the difference between a want and a need. Stop buying shit you don't need. All right? Literally, go on a spending freeze. This includes going on a lot of dates and paying, which is another mistake that a lot of young dudes make, and that includes me. I was dating heavily back when I was single. And I was the dude that was like, yeah, I'll pay, right? And so you go out, even though I was making literally $24,000 a year, I was like, oh, I'll pay. And so instead of going out for a cup of coffee, I'd go out to dinner, we'd have drinks, it ended up being $150 every single time I'd go out. And I was going out 2 to 3 times a week. All right, stop it. You don't need to do that. There are affordable date options that don't require you to spend a lot of cash. And if you're not comfortable asking her, hey, if you've got a job, if you want to go Dutch, or do you want to share in the cost of us dating and doing things, that's fine, I get it. But in today's world, today's society, I think it's probably more socially acceptable for you guys just to have an honest conversation about finances, which is the next mistake that you need to not make, and that is don't date somebody that is bad financially. Now, this one sounds like I'm just being harsh, but here's the deal. Financial responsibility, financial literacy is something that you develop, and it's really difficult to learn, right? And if you're really bad with money, it's probably not going to be super easy for you to get really good with money. Financially responsible people should date financially responsible people, because here's the deal. Your debt is going to be their debt is going to be your debt. And if you are somebody that is financially stable and you've got goals, you've got dreams, you've got the idea that someday I want to invest, I want to make some money, I want to retire, I want to do this, I want to be comfortable. If you've got the albatross, if you've got this financial albatross hanging around your neck or your ankle, right, of somebody that doesn't know how to basically save or doesn't know how to not buy things that they just want, right? Or they don't have the ability to work and have a job, which is something else you need to run from. If you're dating somebody that is scared of hard work and just wants to be I don't even know. What is the name for it these days, right? Don't date that person. What are they bringing to the table? Looks are a depreciating asset. And sex is one of those things where you show me the hottest girl in the world, I'll show you a guy who's tired of screwing her. It's one of those things that it's not that important. And as you get older, as you get more mature, you will also understand that it's really probably not that important. What is important is being with somebody that you care about, that is financially responsible, that shares your ideals when it comes to finances, future, investing, and being financially sound. Insurance. Another mistake that a lot of young people in their 30s make a mistake in not doing, right? Insurance is a big deal. And as you have and develop more assets, it becomes a bigger deal, right? Whether or not it's health insurance, auto insurance, which you need legally in order to drive, life insurance, if you've got people that depend on your income, probably need that if you're starting a family, or if you have a business, cyber liability insurance. This is something that I ended up getting. You know, if you're in YouTube or you're doing some type of social media, you probably should look into an entertainment insurance policy. And if you've got assets over a few $1,000,000, you definitely need an umbrella policy. Even though paying insurance premiums suck, huge, hairy, unmanscaped monster nuts, it's good to have the peace of mind to know that, okay, if something happens to me, I'm not going to be completely desolate, right? My insurance premiums per year is over $100,000 for all my assets, all my buildings, all my things that I do, all of my policies. That's a lot of money, but I pay it. Now, the good news is that I haven't had many claims, but it's there, and it's an investment. It's an investment in just in case something does happen, I don't want to be financially fucked. Does that make sense? Debt. We got to talk about it. In my opinion, debt is bad. There is no such thing as leveraging debt. It's bad, right? I'm sure that there is some way to work the system, but I don't think you should be trying it, right? A lot of the finance bros on YouTube will be like, yeah, just, whatever, and you can leverage debt. Really? Pay cash for it. If you can afford it, pay cash for it. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. But do not use your credit card for things like shoes or, monthly expenses. Don't do it because you're just literally making somebody else rich. In my opinion, pay off your debt as quickly as possible. Focus there. Before you worry about saving a ton of cash and having some big rainy day fund, pay down your debt. That, in my opinion, is the smartest financial decision you can actually make, is don't have high interest credit card debt. Now, if you have a mortgage, that's fine. If you've got a car loan, okay. But this brings me to something else. Don't buy the super expensive fancy car when you can't afford the super expensive fancy car. Or even if you can afford it, once again, boom, live below your means. It's essential for you to truly grow your wealth because the lower you can live, right? If you're making this and you're living here, all this delta in there, you can use that to invest. You can use that to grow. You can use that to pay down your debt. And when you are debt-free, I can tell you from experience, it is the sweetest, most amazing feeling ever because debt robs you of joy. It robs you of happiness. It is like a 1,000-pound gorilla on your back. For those of you who know, you know. Pay it down. Make a point to pay it down, which means you got to stop spending on cards. Don't do it. But Alpha, I have an Amex and I pay it off every month and I get the point. That's fine. So do I. But you're paying it off every month, which means you're using it, you're getting the points, and then you're paying it off. You're not accumulating a balance. All right? And the next thing is you're not investing. If you are in your 30s, this is the time to start thinking, right? You should be earning more. If you're not earning more, that's another conversation that we got to have. Maybe you start a side hustle, maybe you look for another job, maybe you develop higher quality, higher value skills. If you want to start a business, I've got a link down below to the White Label Empire. It is my business community, and we're doing amazing things. We are building millionaires in there, and this basically is my way of giving back. All right, we got 2 different membership options. You pay one time, $397, month to month, $97, cancel anytime. I have a curriculum that I put together that will walk you through step by step how to start a business. Whether or not you're going and sourcing it, on a site like Alibaba, customizing it, putting your logo on it, doing it the white label way that I did Pete and Pedro, or you're doing it the custom way. I take the guesswork out of it and I try to limit your risk because really that's what it's about. This community is my way of basically helping shortcut you or take you to the front of the line so that you can do something amazing, because nothing feels better than buying your mom a house. Cash. And I'm just saying, it feels awesome. Anyway, I'm going to link to that down below. But investing in yourself, investing in your skills, investing in your future. Something else you could invest in is possibly real estate. Another thing that when you're ready is a good investment. Real estate typically will appreciate. The problem is interest rates. When the interest rate is real high, you're borrowing and having to pay more for the ability to borrow the money to buy the thing that you're wanting to buy, whether or not it's a car or a house or a rental property or a commercial unit. You've got to just do the math and you've got to figure out what's good. But I can tell you from experience that buying real estate is one of the things that has dramatically impacted my overall net worth. All right, I've got a lot of money tied up in real estate, but if I've got a tenant that basically is paying me $6,000 a month and it's paid cash, you know, I had like $300,000 into it, it's a good ROI. It's a good investment, all right? The salon, another example. I basically bought that building for $730,000. I put another $1.2 million into it. We started a business, but that unit or that building is worth like $3.5 million. And so I invested $2 million, but my net worth grew $1.5 million above that because it's worth $3.5 million if I were to sell it. And I also started a side business in there, Salon Posta, which pays me rent. They rent from me, which means I make about $10,000 a month. So that's $120,000 a year I'm getting in rent. All right, not a bad investment on $2 million or a bad ROI. But then I also own part of the business, which pays me a distribution. Guys, the deal is when you have money, you can use it, you can leverage it. You can let it work for you, as they say. But if you don't, you can't. Which means you got to stop making some of the dumb-ass financial decisions that a lot of you are making in your 30s. In your 40s, you're still going to make some bad financial decisions. At least I have. But at least you are going to educate yourself and you're going to try to do better. It's about knowledge. You got to have it. You got to know where you're going. You got to know what you're doing. Because money, it's one of those things that you need to learn. One of the downsides of growing up poor or not having access to people that understand it enough to teach you is that you never learn it. And so you got to learn it on your own. And in the process, if you're like me, you're going to make a lot of bad decisions. Bottom line is this: learn about money, learn how to invest, learn about interest, learn about credit. And this brings me to the final point I want to make, and that is keep your credit score high as possible. Your credit score is going to impact you in a lot of ways. All right, you not paying off the debt or you not paying or making payments is going to cost you more in the long term. When you have a good credit score, this basically says that you are credit worthy. When you've got a high credit score, you're going to get more favorable rates on loans. Or if you want to buy that asset, right, you're going to get a better rate, which means you're not going to have to pay the person that's lending you the money as much money as you would have if you had shitty credit. Gentlemen, don't have shitty credit, period. That is the last lesson. Hopefully you're smarter than me. Now I've got good credit and I've got a lot of money because I made some good decisions and corrected a lot of the money mistakes I was making in my 30s. Hopefully you can do the same. Peace.